Good afternoon. Welcome to the Harrisonburg Rotary Club. Again, I'd love to see a full room. I see members I haven't seen for a while. It's good to see many of you back, and also a lot of visitors that we will be introducing here shortly. But before we do all that, we will start as we always do with the things we think, say, and do.
First is the truth. Second is fair to all concerned. Third will build goodwill and better friendships. Fourth will be beneficial to all concerned.
Today's song is by Lynn. God bless America.
God bless America, the
land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
So I told the folks at my table I was at the Springsteen concert this weekend. You sound better than the people in the crowd around me. John? Yeah, it was awesome. But let's get refocused. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ken Harst, would you lead us in prayer?
I will. Let's pray together. Thank you, Lord, for this day, for the season of year that we live in. See the flowers and the trees that are pushing forth leaves, and some with color. We just thank you for that. Thank you also for the chatter around these tables, and that we as Rotarians can know each other better and cooperate together and be a positive influence in this city and in this community. Thank you, Lord, for food to eat, and we ask this in your name. Amen.
Dan, come on up.
Good afternoon. I have one guest to announce today. David Weiner is back with us a second time. David is a guest of Wayne.
I will share a couple of words. Yeah, so David, I've gotten to know real well because I get to serve on the board with him. He's executive director of Habitat for Humanity and is interested in joining us. So glad to have you. And also I will mention a guest too. Greg Godsey. It just paused me just for 1 second. I've known Greg forever. Atlantic First Union Bank, and he is a guest of ours today as well. And Ken, would you introduce your guest?
Sure. Happy to introduce Russell Leary, who is Executive Director of New Bridges. So I'll make him also welcome.
Great. Glad you could be with us. I do have one family of Rotary announcement, a sad one. Michael Newpower's mom passed away. So please remember Michael, Robin, and of course the rest of their family in your prayers and thoughts. I guess they'll be traveling later this week for that funeral. So with that said, I also have a number of announcements I want to mention. As always, we keep, Michael's not here to remind us, but I will keep your Rotary service hours logged in. And we are going to give you that opportunity to provide service rescheduled for this coming Saturday, April 1 at 9 a.m. No tools needed, although bring some if you want, but it's going to be tearing that playground if the weather holds this time, and we believe it will. Also, after my begging, we have 3 really good board candidates that we will present to you on April 10, and it'll be some speeches made and hopefully some fun and a chance for you guys to vote and sort of approve this slate of board members. So that's on April 10. And I want to mention to you too, an email that was sent out. We have really one of our major events is the Ethics Awards, one of the best things we've done, we continue to do. and it's coming up, and we need all of you. So if you haven't done it before, it's a really fun, it's one of the most inspiring things that I've been involved in as a Rotarian over the last 20 couple of years. But what the ask is you will greet a family, you will sit at their table with a high school principal and a couple of families, make them feel welcome, and you walk in front of them to the stage and hand them a plaque. So it's just a day of, and there's a sign-up sheet that Michael sent around to us, but please consider, there's every local elementary and middle school and high school is represented, so there's a lot of schools. Anything else, Lynn, that you want to?
If you don't want to do it online, right on here, I'll input it online for you, so you'll have it, so.
We're thankful that Andy and Lynn are our co-chairs of that event, and we're really looking forward to it. This is going to be entering our season of lots of really fun events. We'll have our Rotary Scholarship event coming up later in the spring, which is always an inspiring event. We've got 4-H and FFA awards coming up. So a lot of ways to recognize the wonderful students in this area. So that's it for me today. Rodney, please come tell us about today's speaker.
Well, so today we are pleased to have the Shenandoah Valley Small Business Development Center to share with us today. So in the rotograph, it would have said that Allison Dugan was going to be here today, and many of you would know Allison. She was part of this club for a number of years and is now part of the Rocktown Club, but she is not able to be here with us today. She's ill today. So we are blessed to have Barry Henderson with us. I've known Barry for a long time. He was with SunTrust Bank years ago and moved out of the area. Now he's back and he's working with the Small Business Development Center. So I don't have his formal bio, so I'm just going to say welcome, Barry.
You all hear me now? Andy's gonna keep the time. I know I only have 20 minutes. I want to make sure that you all get to ask a lot of questions. So you know Allison unfortunately is sick, so I am her substitute. And I'm just gonna, I don't know how many in this room know about the SBDC, but I'm gonna give you just a brief Cliff Notes version of what SBDC is. We are a grant-funded organization that supports both existing and new businesses. We've actually been in existence since 1989. We're funded primarily by the Small Business Administration, JMU, Economic Development, all the counties and cities within the Shenandoah Valley. I know Brian's here today and they support us. So that's how we get most of our funding. We also just reestablished a Small Business Advisory Council. And those, I'm not going to mention all the council today in the spirit of time, but I know Atlantic Union supports us, LD&B does. I know Jeff and Greg were both instrumental in making that happen. So they have representatives. And that council, we have 12. So we have 3 from financial services. That would be banks, credit unions, any other organization that provides financial services. We have 3 law firms, and they're all, I call, small business friendly law firms. We have 3 insurance agencies who I've already recognized, LD&B. And then we have 3 great local accounting firms that are small business friendly. So that was just re-established in the last part of 2021 and 2022. So we have 12 additional supporters, investors in the SBDC. I'm going to just take a second to, it was great. I'm sorry Allison was sick, but having an opportunity to come today. I was in this club from, well, I came here in January of '96. Most of you in this community probably would know Wayne Alley. I succeeded Wayne when we were still Crestar. So I spent most of my career, which is now Truist, but on the SunTrust, Crestar, and United Virginia Bank. A lot of people would refer to Fred Funkhauser's bank, because that's who founded the bank. So I was blessed to have lived here from January of '96 to August of 2001. Then I got promoted and got moved again. But while I was living here, it took me a year. Mark Callahan at Clark and Bradshaw proposed me. And that back then is how long the list was to get in this wonderful service club. And that's when we met at the Sheridan. It was 200 plus members, and I'm sure there are a lot of people. I saw Dick Morin, just a lot of reconnection. Judge Crum. The other thing I wanted to recognize, this organization, I think I mentioned this just a moment ago, but it's worth repeating. We've been in existence since '89. There are now 26 other SBDCs in Virginia besides us. We were the second one in the state of Virginia. Congress created small business development centers in the 1988-89. I don't know this to be completely accurate, but I always give credit to Ron Carrier, who was very entrepreneurial, driven, and Zane Shoker were the drivers behind Harrisonburg having the first SBDC. And why? Because Zane would tell you, what Zane used to tell me all the time, he said, Barry, I want to tell you something. He said, I wouldn't be in business if it hadn't been for Fred Funkhauser. Which, it gives me chill bumps to hear that story. And so he cared about small business. So think about Harrisonburg, Virginia, being the second one in the state of Virginia after Congress created these in 1988. So that's a lot to be proud of. We've seen so many clients over the years. Joyce Crack, all of you know Steve. Joyce has been the executive director for a long period of time. She was there over 23 years. She's just recently retired. In fact, Friday was her last day. But we think we will see her again, because just knowing Joyce, how much she cares about clients in the business community. My guess is at some point in time, once she's kind of settled down to retirement, she'll come back and, hopefully be able to work part-time like me, or be a contract employee at SBDC or somewhere in this community. But my belief is she will want to do something. So again, not knowing how many people were going to be there, I've got a bunch of things that I can hand out to you all if you're interested. I put a few of these. This is our annual report. So I'm not going to read to you. That's not my style, because clearly I want to carve out enough time for you to ask me any questions. And how I'm wired is, if I don't know the answer, I will say I don't know the answer, and I'll get your email or phone number and call you. But it's pretty impressive what we do. And let me tell you our staffing. We've had an executive director that was full-time, Joyce. We had an assistant director, you all know Allison. And we had Rosie Riggleman, who's been there over 20 years. She's our office manager. And then besides that, we have 3 other advisors that are part-time. Myself, a lady named Diane McCarthy, a lot of you may know her. She has spent most of her career at Cisco on the sales side. And then we have a lady that lives up in Page, Sarah Levinson, and she's been here over 12 years. So we've got people with lots of business experience. And at the end of the day, I think sometimes the misnomer in the community is we're all about startups. It's the furthest from the truth. And I'm going to share 2 examples. Being in financial services, and as an executive, I've seen a lot in my career. And this says so much about what we do at the SBDC. We had a business, I can't, of course, tell you the name, but this business has been in existence since 1996. And the owners came, and think about this, they came and wanted advice about how to sell their business. I mean, back to taking care of clients, being fair, straightforward, honest, never telling people, you can't do this, you shouldn't do this. We get the facts. You know, here are the strengths, here are the weaknesses. But we're never going to tell anybody, that's not our job. Don't do this. They have to make that decision. So I just think that's a powerful story because, and then most recently, I met with someone, an owner, 100% owner. They've been in business over 15 years and they've decided it's time to sell it and move on to the next chapter of their life. So the reason I share those is we do care about creating jobs in the community, but just as important is retaining jobs. And Brian would tell you that in economic development. You can't have more going out the back door with businesses leaving and closing than you have in new startups. So again, I'm not here to preach to you, but I'm here to tell you why we're important to the Shenandoah Valley, whether it's Rockbridge or Highland County or Page or Rockingham, all the towns and cities and those communities, and Augusta, I'm only about Augusta, and Bath. I left out Bath County. They all are in our, what we would call our footprint. So again, we see clients. I travel some to Augusta. We have a satellite office in Augusta County. The Augusta County, their office in Verona, they provide us space there so we can see clients. So we do have an office there. And then in Lexington, the chamber there has been very kind to give us space there to be able to see clients. But most of the time, a lot of times, because of what happened in COVID, we still have people that it makes sense, instead of me traveling or they travel, we do it by Zoom, you know, as the world has evolved. But we're always willing and want to meet face to face, because I think most of the time it's better to meet face to face. So as I said, our scorecard, I'm just going to give you a couple facts. In 2022, we served 351 clients. And what that means is it's not a tick mark. It's actually, that's how many individual clients. That isn't like I saw Rodney at Bridgewater Retirement Community 15 times, and it's counted at 351. You know, it's actually the number of clients that we interacted with in 2022. The number of counseling hours, which is why it's so important to have, as a grant-funded organization, the only way we can see more clients is we got to raise revenue or investments. I don't want to call it revenue, investments. So, and we all know grant-funded organizations typically can't expect to get major increases each year. So I don't know the way we could do it, which was kind of the genesis behind not only having their investment in small business, this advisory council that we reestablished, but the fact that they all care about the small business and they care about the Shenandoah Valley, and they know it's important for us to continue to grow and prosper in the community. The other thing is we spent, on average, about 6.5 hours per client. And then training participation. We have a class for people that are contemplating a new business called Start Smart. It really is good because it gives someone just enough to start thinking about, do I really want to do this? You know? So it's really invaluable for them to do that. And we typically, we don't require it, but we recommend it before we sit down with them to have an advising or consulting session. So these are some other new things that are worth sharing. There were 16 new businesses created in 2022. $3.3 million worth of capital was invested. 141 jobs created. But here's the one I always like. 132 jobs retained. So, probably before I open it up for questions, the last thing I would want to say is I was on one of the original Small Business Advisory Council, and I lived here the first time. And most of the people in this room probably know Karen Whittington. She's going to be retiring soon. I've heard from Sunnyside, a wonderful community, to retirement community. And she was the executive director. And who called on me when we were still Crestar? Same choker and Karen Whittington. And we invested in it, and I participated on the council. So I've enjoyed having an opportunity to come and tell you why people would want to invest in us and what we do every day. But also the opportunity to come back to a service club that I was in, and I was in Rotary before I came here the first time. And it is special to come back and reconnect with not only business people, but people I knew for the last 25 years. So, we'll pause. I'm probably running out of time, right, Andy?
Yeah, you're good.
We're good? So
Questions?
I'm gonna open it up for questions. What questions do you have?
Barry, what are the most common types of questions you get from companies?
Great question, John. Depending on what stage they're in, like the business that I counseled or consulted with recently, they've been in business 25 years, they didn't think the business was worth anything. Yeah, and I said, no, it's worth something. And they said, well, we appreciate all the assets. I said, yeah, but I said, I can provide you some data that will show different ways of selling the business, different options. It might be a certain multiple of EBITDA, but I said, we can give you some of those, and then you can take those to your CPA, and your CPA hopefully can guide you about where's their starting place. But on new businesses, John, it ranges, I met with someone recently that wants to start a business, but they had no idea. So they set up the appointment, came and said, so what do you think I ought to do? What business do you think I ought to start? And I'm not saying that, but that's at the far end of the spectrum, a question. So I consulted the individual. I said, well, we can't tell you that, but do you have a list? I said, once you develop a list, I said, we can give you some facts about, is it growing, is it not growing, is it a flat industry, is it one that's declining? I said, we can do that, but I said, you've got to at least have an idea of direction. The other thing is, when you start talking about business plans or projecting revenue, I was talking to somebody recently, and I said, do you ever numerize whatever you want to do? If they have a product, and they go, so no, what do you mean by that? I said, have you thought about how many products you have to sell just to break even? And it was just like, wow. I hadn't thought about that. And I said, well, I said, you need to start thinking about it. We can help you and guide you in putting together a spreadsheet that would show kind of your cash flow. But I said, you need to think through it. And we can provide you data where you can go and get ideas. So I hope that's answered your question, John.
That's great, thanks.
You're welcome. Who else?
So, do you charge for any of the services?
No, thank you. I missed that. Yes, that's why we are, why people do invest in us, is that we provide good professional consulting services, no fee, ever. Now, if there's a class, and we're gonna do a seminar, we might charge $25, $30 for somebody to go, but actually consulting hours, we will meet as many times as a client needs to, So, great, thank you, Rodney, for answering that.
Mary, I believe you all serve nonprofits as well, is that correct? You're not nonprofits in the room, but I know there's also a lot of folks who are on board, so we want to know how
We
you
do.
serve nonprofits.
We do. Thank you, Miranda, for that.
I was curious how you define small business, and you told stories about these 15-year businesses that came, which is great. But how do you decide, like, if there's an established business that probably doesn't need your help, they just want some free consulting, how do you decide who qualifies and what's a small business for you?
We would never not consult someone, meet with someone and give them advice regardless of the size. And that could, Wayne, that could happen because, most businesses, once they get to a certain size, and I don't know what that right number is in sales, but what we always recommend, in fact, I was just telling Jeff at his table that we made a referral to a group of insurance agencies in the Shenandoah Valley this morning, LD&D being one of those, since they're an investor of a business that needs commercial insurance. So, the reality is that we try to recommend to clients, once they get to a certain size, they need to have, I call them trusted advisors. Everyone should have a good commercial insurance agency that they trust. They should have a good financial institution, bank. They should have a good law firm that specializes in business law, small business law, and accounting. And so we think that those four are just really so critically important. So in most cases, I think what's going to happen is someone's going to go there first for advice. Once they get, assuming they've got all that. But we don't necessarily define it by sales size. Yeah, I mean, it could, I just think it would be pretty, it would be more of an exception if somebody was doing 15 million a year in sales or 12 million, that they would come back to us. They might, but I think most of them would be probably seeking out those four trusted advisors. But great question.
With the changes of the monetary policy where interest rates are continuing to go up, are you beginning to see that starting to affect small business?
We haven't seen any financial statements at this point from anyone, not that they would necessarily share that with us, unless they were going to start a business. But I do think it will impact any business as interest rates go up, because it's going to narrow their profit margin because their expenses are going to go up. So
Is it harder to get started in capital now?
I don't know. That's, I'm trying to be fair and balanced here. I think anytime you have economic challenges that the environment presents with inflation, I think people's business, they're probably going to have a decline in revenue. So again, it depends on the sector they're in, business sector. But my intuition is banks are still open for business, right, Greg? So and want to do business and want to make loans, because that's how that's how communities are grown and prosper. So great question.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for that presentation. I agree. What was shared earlier in a little conversation before we started today is the diversity of speakers that we have to learn about the business community, the nonprofit community, the government community. So it continues to unfold a picture for us. So thanks again for your presentation. And thank you to our guests today, Russell, Greg, and David. Thank you for being with us. And we are adjourned.